Stand. Job 13. I think I'm going to start in verse 1, read all the way down to verse 15. We're going to find our text this evening is going to be out of verse 15. But I think I want to, just to help us with context sake, have us read 1 through 15 to get us started here. Starting in verse 1, Lo, mine eyes hath seen all this, mine ear hath heard and understood it. What ye know, the same do I know also. I am not inferior to you. Surely I would speak to the Almighty, and I desire to reason with God. But ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value. Oh, that ye would altogether hold your peace, and it should be your wisdom. Hear now my reasoning, and hearken to the pleading of my lips. Will ye speak wickedly for God, and talk deceitfully for him? Will ye accept his person? Will ye contend for God? Is it good that he should search you out? Or as one man mocketh another, do ye so mock him? He will surely reprove you, if ye do secretly accept persons. Shall not his excellency make you afraid, and his dread fall upon you? Your remembrances are like unto ashes, your bodies to bodies of clay. Hold your peace, let me alone, that I may speak, and let come on me what will. Wherefore do I take flesh in my teeth, and put my life in mine hand? Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. But I will maintain mine own ways before him. Let's go ahead and have a word of prayer. Lord, I want to thank you for tonight, Lord, and for the time that we can take in your word this evening. I do pray that you will speak through me, Lord. I pray that you'll use this time. I pray this in your name. Amen. You can go ahead and be seated. Title this evening, I told you, we're going to get the message this evening out of verse 15, where you have Job. He is responding to his, I hesitate to call them friends, but his friends that came, and he's responding to them, and in that response says, though he slay me, he being God, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. So I've had this passage that I've kind of been working on and thinking on all this week, and it was this morning that I got the title for it. Kaylee told me I had to tell the story behind where I got the title. The title for the message is simply this: no matter what. So like I said, all week long I've been kind of thinking on this passage and preparing for tonight, and had this in my mind. This morning, Kaylee and I went out for our morning run, and it was dark because it was before sunrise, and because of the freezing rain last night, the sidewalks were icy and super slick, and it probably looked like a comedy show for cars going by as we're slipping around corners and, trying to maintain some sort of speed while trying not to fall on my face. But there's a guy who every morning while we're running, we pass him. He's running the opposite way. And, every morning we pass this guy, and it's the obligatory, you wave at him, or, a quick good morning, those sorts of things. Today, we're running toward him, and it's raining, and it's cold, and it's slick out, and you can see as we're coming to him this big grin on his face. And we get close, and he yells out, no matter what. I don't know his name. I know nothing about him. But despite the rain, despite the cold, despite the ice, we got our run in no matter what. And usually, while I'm running, I'm spending that time kind of thinking through passages that I'm studying. It's kind of, I use it as some of my quiet time. So he said that, and I've been thinking on and studying this passage. What a stranger said to me this morning is exactly what Job is saying. No matter what. I mean, Job could have had some excuse to question what God was doing. We would have probably given him license to question some of what God was doing. I mean, by this point, by Job 13, Job's already lost everything. Look back with me. Let's go ahead and do this. Look back at Job chapter 1 real quick. Just a couple of verses back there. Job 1, starting in verse 13. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabeans fell on them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servant with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands, and fell upon the camels, and have carried them away, yea, and slain the servant with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house, and behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. You think of the day that Job just had, the pain that he would have been in. Have you ever had one of those days where it just feels like you're overwhelmed, like just one thing goes wrong after another, after another, after another, those type of days that you're thinking, what's next? Like, there's been enough bad things today. What's next? Can anything else possibly go wrong? That's the day Job is having, but to the extreme. He quite literally lost everything. And then if that wasn't enough, while grieving the loss of all of that, then God allows Satan to touch his body, and you have the pain involved in that. By the time you get to Job 13, he's now had, as I said, his so-called friends show up, and they rail on him about how, well, this must be a judgment from God. Their conversation is, well, Job, you just need to stop pretending to be holy and just admit what you did, so God will, judge you and get it over with. We probably would not have blamed Job at all had he questioned what God was doing. We would not have had much problem if Job was crying, asking God why he took his kids. We wouldn't have thought much of it had Job been upset about losing his house and his livestock, let alone his own health. People can deal with a lot of things, but people have a hard time not getting upset at God when their health starts to fail. Job is facing all this, let alone the fact that God was giving Satan permission to do all this. We wouldn't have blamed Job at all had he been upset at God and questioned God's reasoning behind it all. But he didn't. It was in the middle of all of that Job makes the statement that we're looking at tonight. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in God. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in God. Or to use our title tonight, no matter what, I'll trust in God. This idea of though he slay me, it goes against what we think. We think when he blesses me, that's when I'll trust in God. When I can clearly see God working in my life, when I can clearly see his leading, or when I can clearly see what he's doing, well, then I'm going to trust him. When life is going maybe according to my plan, then I'll trust God. When I'm facing no struggles, then I'll trust God. When God's giving me what I want, then I'll trust God. But this is looking at the exact opposite. When life is hard, I'll trust God. When I can't feel the blessings of God in my life, I'll trust him. When I don't see him working, when my family is having problems, I'll trust him no matter what. So I have 3 areas that I want us to see and look at specifically with this evening. The first, excuse me, I just coughed right on the microphone, sorry. First, if I have a cough, I always go left. And there's a microphone right there, so you're just going to have to live with that tonight. First, trust him when life is perfect. This sort of goes along a little bit with Sunday night's message and seems kind of opposite of this idea of though he slay me, but follow me here for a minute. We often think that when things are going according to plan, that in those times it'll be easy to trust God. When life's going perfect. When the job is going well and the family is all getting along and there's no extra stresses and, everything's just going just so. At those times we think, well, it's going to be easy to trust God, which to a point is true. Except when you're in those times, we don't feel like we're in a place that we have to trust God. When we're in those times, exactly, we feel like I don't need to trust right now. Whatever it may be, the job is going perfectly, so we don't feel like we have to trust God, which causes us to become reliant on the job rather than on God. We put our trust in it. Family is doing well, so while it would be easy to trust God, we don't, because we become reliant on the relationship. And whatever other examples that you want, we could apply them all, because like we saw on Sunday night's message, when life is perfect, it becomes easy to forget what God's done. It's made me think of Psalm 23, a familiar passage, I know, but the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You think of those green pastures, those still waters. Those are those perfect times. Those are those times of life that everything is going just how it's supposed to. In those times, it's easy to forget who brought you there. Psalm 23 starts off with that phrase, the Lord is my shepherd. I've said this in messages before. Sheep don't know how to find green pastures for themselves. There are some animals that are born with the natural ability. They have the instincts in them when they're born to find food. Most animals, in fact, in nature are able to survive. They'll find places for food, and they'll find places for water. They will find places for shelter. Not sheep. They don't have natural instinct. I read a couple of things this week in preparation for this. You ever want to get a good laugh? Read about sheep. They're real dumb. Real dumb. They don't have natural instinct. That's not in them. So without the shepherd, they don't find green pasture. I don't remember, a while back I mentioned this in a message, when it comes to water for sheep. He talks about beside the still water, sheep are drawn to fast-moving currents. The study I read this week said they don't know why, but sheep are naturally drawn to fast-moving currents, and more so, they're drawn to jump in to fast-moving currents. They can't drink from it. They jump in it. Think about wool when it's wet. It's heavy and it sinks. They can't survive without a shepherd because they don't have the natural instincts to know how to survive. We can't survive in this world without the Lord as our shepherd. But when you're standing in green pastures, it's pretty easy to forget who brought you there. It's pretty easy to forget that we need to trust him, that we need to rely on him. When you're in green pastures, it's pretty easy to forget what he brought you through to get you there. Remember that in Psalm 23, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for thou art with me. The shepherd brought you through some things to get you to those green pastures. The shepherd brought you through some things to get you to the still waters and to the place of shelter. But when you've been in that place of comfort for any time at all, it's easy to forget what God brought you through. It's easy to forget where you've been. I don't know, this may sound odd, but it's been a big help for me in learning to trust God kind of no matter what. I try from time to time to intentionally think of some of the hard things God brought me through. Struggles that I didn't know what I was going to do, and God brought me through. Or maybe financial trials that I saw no help, and God brought me through. Or maybe struggles with extended family that I sure didn't know the right answers, but God brought us through. Even health scares that I had no idea what was going to happen, but God brought us through, because it reminds me of what he has brought me through, so I can remember to trust him even in the good times. To become reliant on him even when you don't think you need to. Trust God no matter what. When life is perfect. Number 2, trust God when you don't know the way. Trust God when you don't know the way. Again, think of that sheep. We may not like being referred to sheep, especially since I already commented on they're pretty dumb, but biblically we're compared to sheep pretty often. Those sheep don't know the way, but they trust the shepherd to know the way. They don't know where they're going. They just trust the shepherd knows where he's going. And this is a side note for a moment, but the second, I remembered, the second the sheep decides, I no longer trust the shepherd, and wander off their own way, they're in all sorts of trouble. They just have to trust that the shepherd knows where he's going. We don't like not knowing in general. But let's be honest, there are a lot of things that we simply do not know. Our knowledge at best is limited. For some, that's more than others. Some, maybe have the capacity to know more than others, but even the smartest person on the planet has things he doesn't know because his knowledge is limited. But God's is infinite. Those things you don't know, He knows. It reminds me, we sang the song, "My Lord Knows the Way Through the Wilderness." Brother, I had that in my notes, and he texted me, he goes, "Are there any songs that would fit with tonight's message?" Actually, this one would fit perfect. And then he put it right before the message. That was perfect. But that song, "My Lord Knows the Way Through the Wilderness," all I have to do is follow. I don't have to know the path. I don't have to figure out where it is I'm going. I don't have to know the direction. I don't have to know all the ins and outs. He knows the path. He knows the way. All I have to do is follow. Trust that He's going to guide. Have you ever driven somewhere that you didn't know the area, but the person that jumped in your passenger seat's familiar with the area, and they tell you, "Oh, I'll be your navigator. I'll tell you how to get there." There are some people that when they say that, they take it serious. They give you lots of notice when a turn's coming up, and they let you know what lane you need to be in, and they help to make it as easy as possible. With that person, you can be confident. You can know you're going to make the turns. You can know you'll get where you're supposed to be with minimal stress. You can trust and you can be confident. And then there are others that they jump in the passenger seat and say, "Oh, I'll give you directions," and they know the area and they know how to get there, but they get distracted. So they're talking and they aren't paying attention. So you're driving along and all of a sudden you get the last minute, "Wait, that was your turn." Or, in half a block you need to be 3 lanes that way and turning left. You can't trust that they'll guide. God isn't distracted as He guides. Trust that though you don't know the path, He'll show you the way. Trust that He knows the way. Have you ever had someone who said they would show you the way, but then when you started really quickly to question if they really knew the way or not? They claim they knew, but it sure doesn't look right, and they're starting to sweat a little bit and look a little nervous over there. We took a hiking trip one time that I am normally pretty good about knowing directions and having all this stuff figured out. But I was the one who on this trip, I had it all, I thought, figured out where we were going, and we took the family, we were going to go up hiking, and I had done my research. I thought I knew the way. Starting out, I was confident we were going the right way. We were going to this lake that we're going to camp at. I knew where we were going, but after a while, when we were like 4 miles past where I thought the lake was supposed to be, and there was still no lake in sight, and nothing on the map looked right at that point, I started to question. And my family, who I was guiding, definitely started to question if their guide knew the way. There was some tense moments there. I'll just leave it brief at that. There were some tense moments there that it was pretty obvious I no longer knew the way. And they could tell I no longer knew the way. And I just go, it's only going to be another mile. Just keep going. I'm sure, I'm looking at the map. Eventually, this trail hits that lake somewhere. We've got to be close. In fairness to me, I did my research. I even talked to a ranger who said it was 10 miles. We were like 14 miles in and never found a lake before we finally stopped. But you start to lose confidence. You start to question that. There are times in life that you're following God and it gets hard and we start to wonder, does God really know the way? We start to question that sometimes, don't we? That things get difficult and I know I'm supposed to follow God and I know I'm supposed to trust Him, but boy, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I sure hope He knows the way. Trust that He knows the way. Trust that He won't lead you astray, that not only does He guide you and not only does He know the way, but He won't make the wrong turn. Again, most of us can understand this analogy. Someone's giving you directions and they tell you, take a left here. And then as soon as you do, they go, oh, wait, maybe it was the next left. It led you astray. Or perhaps someone that you thought you could trust and you do what they're telling you to do and it gets you in trouble. They led you astray. Growing up, my parents couldn't, it wasn't until we were a whole lot older that they figured this out. That Bo, we lived in the country, and Bo and I, we would go outside and play, and my brother would come back totally clean, and I would come back covered in mud from head to toe. And it was a long time before my parents just assumed I was a messy kid or something. Like, they just thought, man, Caleb just finds mud. But here's what they didn't know until a whole lot later. Bo was my big brother, and he and I would play. But if you know Bo directs anything that he's involved in. Like, you don't play with him, you do what Bo says. And so that's just what happens. So down to when we were playing, he would direct where I would walk, or where I would hide, or where I would lay down. All of those sorts of things. And Bo had the ability to find really clean places for him to hide, and really muddy places where he would tell me to hide. And he was my big brother, so I listened, and then I got in trouble for being covered in mud. He led me astray. You can tell him I said that. I'll tell him to his face. I don't mind. No, with God, we can trust that He will not lead us astray. He knows the way. He's going to guide. He won't lead you the wrong way. So even when you don't know the way, trust God no matter what. Number 3, trust Him when the path ahead looks hard. I've already used one. You guys know that I like hiking, so you get another hiking analogy. Too bad. There are times that you know you're on the right path, and you can see your destination just ahead, but you can see the path ahead that gets you there is going to be hard. Sometimes you can see it and it's going to be steep, or sometimes you can see it and it's really rocky and it's going to be difficult. Sometimes I've been on ones where, there's a bunch of blowdowns, so there's trees all over the trail and you're climbing over and under and on and trying to get around them all. You know you're headed the right way. You can see your destination. You know you're going the right direction, but this is about to get difficult. I remember the first time that I climbed Mount St. Helens, the first stretch of it it's just a hike through the woods. I mean, it's uphill. You're going up a mountain. It's uphill, but at that point, it's nothing too bad. And then you come to the top of the tree line, and the path in front of you goes from a path through the woods to you're climbing boulders the rest of the way up. You can see where you're going, but it hits you, this is about to get hard. And I'm going the right way, but this is going to be difficult. Reminds me of Matthew 7:13 and 14. Enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. But straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. There are times in life that you're on the path that God's leading you down, but you can see life's about to get hard. Trust Him anyways. When you see giants ahead, trust God anyways. The children of Israel, you think about the children of Israel, they're on the path that God has set for them. He's led them out of bondage in Egypt. They cried out to Him, and He delivered them from their bondage there. He's leading them to the promised land. They're on the path that He's leading them. But then they saw the giants of the land and decided this is too hard. I mean, they're following the pillar of fire. They are following God. And they were willing to follow Him when it brought them out of their bondage. They trusted God when He delivered them from the army of Pharaoh chasing them down. I know there was a brief moment of, did God just bring us out here to die? But they followed God across the dry ground while God was delivering them from the armies of Pharaoh. But when they saw the giants ahead, they stopped trusting God. We have some giants that we face in life, and when they are in your path, the path sure does get difficult. But here's the reality. If you're on the path that God's leading you down, you can trust Him that He's going to fight them for you. When you see trials in your way, trust God. There's no denying that we face trials. More than that, there's no denying that when we're going the direction that God leads, you will face trials. You're living for God. When you're living for God, the world doesn't like that, and people oppose you. If you're living for God, Satan doesn't like that and is going to be sure to throw every roadblock in your way that he thinks may trip you up. You're going to face trials. When you see those trials coming, it's easy to think, well, this road's too hard. maybe I'll turn aside. It's easy to start questioning your guide. But when the Lord's your shepherd, you can trust him even when the path ahead looks hard. So I'm going to get ready to wrap this up, conclusion this evening, and I'm going to do that this way. The idea, no matter what, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. I'm going to trust God no matter what. I'm going to trust God when it seems life were perfect and it's easy to forget how much I need him. I'm going to trust God when I don't know the way, because he does and he's not going to lead me astray. I'm going to trust God when the path ahead looks difficult and I don't know how I'm going to get through it. Let's tonight make the determination that no matter what, I'm going to trust God. I think it would be very simple to visit the altar, to just commit to God, with your help, I'll trust you no matter what. Let's pray. Lord, I pray that you'll help us to really grasp a hold of this. Lord, it's so easy for us to be derailed by the things that happen around us. I think in this room, I don't think it's new to anyone in here that we ought to trust God. I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with the fact that we ought to be living our lives following his leading, and yet it is so easy for us to get thrown off of that and to stop trusting you when the trials come, when the giants are ahead, when the struggles are there, when we don't know the way and we have questions. Lord, I pray that you will help us tonight to really grasp a hold of this. Lord, help us tonight, as I said at the end there, Lord, help us tonight just to commit to you with your help, God. I'm going to need your help. With your help, I'm going to trust you no matter what. I pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.